The Dice Tower, episode 553, Stop, Drop, and Scrape.
The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. This episode is sponsored by USAopoly. Share laughter and make memories. Welcome to The Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them.
In today's show, I'm joined by the imitable Eric Summerer, to talk all about family games and to get your input on game hype and victory points. I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Eric Summerer.
Oh my glob. This is amazing, Eric.
I'm so excited. We finally get to play. This is going to be great.
Ha 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 ha. We shall make Tom regret this.
No, we don't want to do that because then he won't let us do it again.
Oh, darn. There you are with your dose of reality. All right.
Boy.
Actually, have you listened to the last episode?
I've heard like the first 15, 20 minutes. I haven't had a chance to listen to the whole thing, but I have been, I have to be honest, a little bit jealous of the fun that Mandy and Tom have been having, just hanging out for one thing, but also playing so many games at the gathering. I have not played quite that many in the last couple weeks.
Oh, for sure. They're out there on Twitter sharing photos with all sorts of fun people, but I'm glad they're there so that, and they're playing a lot of pre-release stuff, which sometimes sounds really awesome. Like you're getting in early and you're getting the scoop, but sometimes that means you're playing some stuff that's pretty rough around the edges too.
It's true. Also, a whole bunch of stuff that you're not allowed to talk about. I mean, that's a common theme at the Gathering of Friends is a lot of prototypes and early concept games get played, and a lot of it's like, no, I can't actually talk about that. I played a really fun game, but I can't talk about that.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, when you do get to finish the episode, make sure you listen to the part where Mandy is trying to figure out where Tom has to defend my life from Mandy.
Wait, what? I can't wait to get to this. I will have to fast forward and get there quickly.
All in good fun.
Oh, my goodness. So what have you been up to over the past couple weeks, Suzanne?
I have been playing a ton of games, and I'm super excited to talk about them. But I really love that you and I kind of decided that we're going to keep this kind of an all-access gaming-centric episode.
Well, yeah. I mean, I love that about the show, and I wanted to do at least an all-access gaming segment. But as we started talking about it, we're like, well, we have tons of all-access games. Let's just do all-access games. It's a supersized segment for this episode.
Why have one piece of pie, Eric, when you can eat the whole pie?
Well, I was waiting for the pie metaphors to come out, but now I don't have to wait.
We don't hold back here, Eric.
No, of course not.
Well, and this is not the only podcast that you're kind of sliding on into as a super special guest, right?
Well, yeah, I guess I've been a little bit busy. Maybe haven't been playing as many, but I've shown up in a few places over the past few weeks. One Dice Tower Network podcast that I really enjoy listening to is Flip Flory's Super Saturday Board Game Serial, a really silly variety show, but a lot of fun. And I made another sneak appearance in one of the most recent episodes, episode 20, I show up and I'm talking about Pokemon. And I show up here and there in a couple of other places. It's just a blast anytime I get to hang out with Flip. But I also blazed some new territory with a podcast called DLC. This one is hosted by Jeff Kanata. Who showed up on the Ludology podcast, and we got to talking after that segment aired, and he's like, hey, come on, hang out on my show. The emphasis on DLC is a little more video game focused.
Right.
So while we did talk about board games, I felt a little out of my depth in certain areas of this. We were talking about God of War and Call of Duty and stuff, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on here. But I tried. I think I was relatively intelligent, so I think it's worth tracking down an episode of the show, just because it was entertaining discussion throughout. It was fun to play in a different sort of pond for a little bit. That's DLC episode 229.
And I definitely encourage people to check that out. And I have not listened to this episode myself, Eric, so I'm looking forward to that. But I'm familiar with DLC, and hey, Jeff Kanata is kind of a big deal.
He's legit.
Color me impressed.
I'm psyched. He said he was a fan of this program, so I was pretty...
Shut the front door.
I was pretty excited to get to hang out with him for a little bit.
Speaking of hanging out, Eric, when do I get to actually hang out with you in person again?
Oh,
because it's been a little while since I've seen you.
It has. I know. It's. I think, when was the last time we did see? I think it was the cruise that we actually got to hang out together.
Yeah, in February.
It's not going to be, I think, your upcoming trip to the CMON Expo. I'm unfortunately not going to be there, but Origins is just around the corner. It's only about a month and a half away at this point.
That's wild to me that it's coming up so quickly in June.
That's hard to really process, actually. But yes, I will for sure be at Origins. We'll be manning the table. We'll be filming live content for the Dice Tower. I'm excited to jump back in. I've sort of felt a little... out of the loop over the past couple of big events. So I'm excited to get back into the swing of things, begin the convention season. But you'll be at CMON.
Yeah, and I'm really bummed that you're not going to be there, but I know, time is what it is and everything. And this is going to be my first CMON Expo. I've never been before. It's in Georgia, which I haven't been to since I was a teenager. So that'll be
nice.
Interesting. I'm hoping it's not too hot yet. That's my hope.
I have no idea.
But then again, I'll probably just be in like a convention center, right? In a hotel, like where it's air conditioned and all that good stuff anyway.
I'm sure once you're inside the venue, you'll be fine.
Yeah, with games, lots and lots of games. I'm excited to try CMON Expo and see all the good stuff. I know that there's a lot of tabletop games that I know and love and familiar with, but I also know that they have other kind of miniatures focused elements as well, which I have to be honest, it's not my area of knowledge or expertise, but I am fascinated by a lot of elements, especially the talented painters. So I'm looking forward to checking that out. And I know Tom is going to be there, Mandy's going to be there, and I'm sure other guys from the channel will be there as well. So that'll be super fun coming up. Oh my gosh, in only 2 weeks. That's so close.
Oh my goodness. Oh boy.
But let's talk about this all access gaming that you were so excited to try out. Should we dive on in?
Let's dive away.
All access gaming.
That was probably pretty good.
All right, so I did have an opportunity to play some games over the past couple weeks because my family and I were traveling in Washington, D.C., and we got to visit one of our favorite game stores, the Labyrinth, which is on Pennsylvania Avenue in the heart of D.C., and we made plans to visit their game night. We actually got there on a weekly game night, got to hang out with everybody playing in the store, actually met a few fans of the podcast, including a pair from Germany, which was really crazy.
In Washington, D.C.?
In Washington, D.C., they happened to come into the store. They're like, oh, do you live in D.C.? No, we're just visiting today. Anyway, we got to play some games with the family. The kids got to check out. They had a nice full shelf of library games for families, including some new releases. So the first thing that we got a chance to play with the kids is called Dr. Beaker. This is from Blue Orange Games, designer Roberto Fraga and Delphine Lemonnier. Artist is Stefan Escapa. This is part of a series, I guess, that Blue Orange has created, the Mad Scientist series. The first one was Dr. Eureka, which was those test tubes with the marbles, and you'd have to pour the marbles into the test tubes and in order to make a pattern that was on a card that got flipped up in the center of the table. This is basically the same concept of the game. You're going to flip up a card and try and arrange your marbles to match the pattern. But the device you're using is very different in Dr. Beaker. Imagine, a beaker. You've got sort of a narrow neck and then a wider bottom, a plastic beaker, and you have 6 marbles inside this thing. And in the bottom of the beaker is a ring that can hold marbles, and it's sort of a center space that can hold 2 marbles. And the center space is walled off, so marbles can only go in and out in one spot. And that outer ring sort of spins around, but marbles can only enter the outer ring through that one spot at the center. You also have a plastic stick, in which you will stir the marbles around. So you are somebody flips up the card, and it has a picture of these marbles arranged somehow in the bottom of this beaker. And you have to use the stick to move the marbles around, spin the ring, and flip them in and out, and swirl them around in order to match the pattern. And once you do it correctly, you say, I'm done. And if you're correct, you then claim that card, and you play to, I think, 10 cards, but you can always dial it back and play to only 5 or 3 or whatever. I think I like this one better than Dr. Eureka, having played both.
Really?
I think something in my brain matches the assortment or the arrangement of these marbles in this outer ring, inner ring thing. When I was pouring the marbles in and out, I don't know, I had a block there in trying to figure out how to make that work. But working with the ring and the inner section seems to make more sense to me. But it's basically the same game. And I don't necessarily think you need to own both if you are looking for this style of game, this sort of dexterity race game. I don't know if you need both. But
interesting.
I like them, and I think I like this one just a little bit more than Dr. Eureka. As far as the kids go, my youngest, the 6-year-old, was having trouble even manipulating the components. And the 10-year-old did fairly well in figuring it out. So he enjoyed it. But the 6-year-old was sort of turned off and I think gave up about halfway through the game. But that's Dr. Beaker from Blue Orange.
Oh, interesting. I have a copy of this game, and it's actually one that I haven't managed to get to the table yet. So fascinating that you think it's relatively similar to Dr. Eureka, which is a game I absolutely love.
Yeah. I mean, that's another one that my 6-year-old he got very frustrated with Dr. Eureka because the pouring of these marbles can get a little tricky. And it's if you don't have that manual dexterity to be able to pour marbles in and out of a small container, this one you're not losing the marbles as easily since they're sort of trapped inside this beaker. So I think he found it a little bit easier than Eureka.
Okay. All right. I have to admit, as you're talking, I am in disbelief that your oldest is 10.
I know. Oh, my goodness. If you feed them, they grow.
But hopefully that's exciting because that opens him up to new types of games as he evolves and grows.
Well, yeah, I mean, the 10-year-old has come with me to a few local conventions at this point, and he's actually been in charge of the kids and families table at our ConCon convention for, only a couple of slots during the course of the weekend. But he's been running and teaching games, and he still has a lot to learn about, keeping things moving with a group, but he does sort of do his own thing at these conventions and has for the last couple years.
That is cool. That is very, very cool. Well, I also have a game about that involves a stick, at least.
Okay.
Of all things.
Hey, stick-based games right here.
Not that that's going to be our theme. Not going to be our theme, I promise. And that is Die Horbies, or the Hear Me's in English.
Okay.
We'll just go with it. Sometimes names translate oddly, I guess we'll say. We'll go with that.
The Hear Me's.
This is a game from Haba, and it was designed by Wolfgang Lehmann. And, it is one of their traditional yellow box games geared towards a younger set. And I remember opening this box and going, what the heck is this? And I almost threw away a game component because I really didn't know what I was getting into. Along with some different cards that you have that have different line drawings and things. I put some player shields. There is a stick, just a very plain wooden dowel. It kind of looks like a long version of the wooden dowels that you use to assemble IKEA furniture with.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but pencil length. And a blue square. And it's mounted on firm plastic, so it's very, it's like a little chunk thing of the rough side of hook and loop fastener, or Velcro. The rough stuff,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. That was my reaction, Eric, as I was opening this game. Okay. And when I realized, I'm like, oh no, I need that stick. This is part of the game. What this is it's thematically, there are these little gremlin-like creatures, and of course it's Haba, so they're all very cute and colorful. And they're called the Hear Me's in English, Hear, Hear Me's. And what you're doing is you have these cards, and there's yellow easy cards and blue difficult cards, and they have line drawings, simple line drawings with dots on them of pizza or flowers or sunshine or whatever. And what you are doing is everybody has a player shield, and then one active player gets one of these cards at random, and then you draw the drawing. You replicate the drawing using that stick on your Velcro. And all the other players are listening to the sounds, trying to figure out which one of the drawings it is.
Oh.
There's a tableau of these illustrations out in the center of the table, and then when you all have your own monster tokens and you drop them on the illustration that you think it is, and if you're correct, you get a tile, and there's this whole kind of set collection element to these little house tiles that you can get that are different colors. But really, the game, the core mechanism is really this scratching of illustrations on the thing. So you have to draw each line up. So you hear this long shh, and then shh, shh, shh. And you're looking at all these drawings going, was that the pizza? Was that the clock? What was that big long thing, just one straight line? Or was that a big circle that they were drawing? And you're scanning, and then you can ask them to repeat it. And, it is wholly unique. No matter what else about this game, it is a unique mechanism that I definitely have not seen before.
Huh. How big is this, the like, for lack of a better term, the Velcro easel? How large is that?
It's like 5 by 5 inches by 5 inches, probably.
So it's a big
nice
square
grid. But then the cards are very small. They're these tiny little square cards.
And then the possible illustrations change each round, basically?
Yeah, there's a hard set and an easy set, but within that set, it's pretty much the same. It's random what the player will get to draw. And then as you go through it, as drawings are eliminated, right, that helps narrow down what a drawing could be as you're playing. And similar to some, other games that have been talked about before, like a concept, there is this set collection scoring element that, quite frankly, when I've played it with my kids, they don't care. They don't care at all. They just want to scratch on this thing. They want to be the active player. They want to draw these things. It has caused a few arguments at the table about, you didn't draw it correctly. Otherwise, I would have guessed correctly, that kind of thing. Keep in mind, my daughter is 9 and my son is 6. Similar age to your kids. And, that's Die Horbies. There's not a ton of game there. There's just one very kind of kitschy, clever, unique mechanism with that scratching of a thing. And if that sounds like something your family would enjoy, it's definitely unique. My kids have had fun with it. We don't necessarily do it for the game. But Hear Me's or Die Horbies from Haba USA, we've definitely gotten our entertainment out of it.
All right. Cool. Next for me is another game I got to play at the Labyrinth. They had just gotten it on the shelf, and that is, I think, one that you and Mandy have talked about, Suzanne. Drop It from Cosmos.
Yeah, just briefly. We just talked about briefly.
It's designed by Bernhard Lach and Uwe Rapp. The artist, it doesn't really apply because there's not really any art here. You've got this frame, this plastic frame, and you will be dropping shapes into the frame. Everybody gets an assortment of their color shapes. So you've got some squares and some circles and some trapezoids, and there's I think another one in there, a triangle or two. Yeah, there you go. And you are dropping these into this frame, and once everyone has finished dropping all their shapes, the game is over. Now, the way you score is by not breaking rules. There is this frame around the outside that has either symbols for do not allow this shape to touch the side or the bottom, or do not allow this color to touch this side or the bottom. And so first, you have to check to see if you touched one of those sides with the color or the shape that you're not supposed to touch it with. Okay? Good. If that's good, you can move on. If you break any of these rules, by the way, you score no points. Next, you check to see if you've touched the same shape with the shape you just dropped. So if I drop a circle and it ends up touching a circle, I score nothing. Then you check to see if you touch any of your own color pieces. If I'm red and I touched a red with my red piece, nope, no points. Also, if you go outside the top edge of the board, you score no points, but that doesn't happen very often. So then, if you manage to score, you check to see how high your piece ended up. There's sort of scoring zones, and if the higher you go, the more points it will be worth. You also have a couple of dots, little targets in the frame that if you touch those dots, if you cover part of the dot with your piece, you will score extra bonus points based on how big that target is. And that's about it. So you could score 0 on your turn, or you could score as much as 8, 9, 10 points in a go if you manage to get a really good drop on a later piece. My eldest really liked this. I really liked this. My wife really liked this. My son, the youngest, the 6-year-old, found it very frustrating because he would often make a decision quickly. He'd be like, it's my turn. Now I'm going to go. Drop. And then it was like, oh, buddy, you should not have dropped a trapezoid right on top of a trapezoid. And so you score nothing. And so he would get very frustrated. We, in a second go, we played through once and then played through again. In the second time, we gave him these mulligan tokens. They have a few that you can give. They say you give 2 to each player. We gave him a bunch. And so we said, all right, these allow you that if you break a rule, you can still score. So for him, for the 6-year-old having a few of these, he was just using them left and right because he would make a lot of mistakes. The 10-year-old, however, figured out that he needed to hold on to his. And he waited until very late in the game and knew that on his last drop of the game, it didn't matter what he was dropping or where he was dropping it. He was scoring full points because he still had his mulligan token.
Clever duck.
Oh, yeah. And we actually, there's a partnership rule as well, and we played that for our second go-through. So it was he and I, the 10-year-old and I, and my wife and the 6-year-old. And my wife and the 6-year-old were scoring like crazy in the first half of the game. And I had spent my mulligan token on a bad drop, and we eventually got to the end, and my 10-year-old revealed that we thought we were tied, and like there was no way that we were going to pass them, even if we got a perfect drop, and he pulls out his token that he could score lots of points in the last drop and not be penalized at all. So we managed to win in the game. So everybody really enjoyed it by the end. The 6-year-old liked having the mulligan. It's a good way to handicap a little bit. And so I think this is a hit. This game has table presence.
Oh, for sure.
And I think it's going to see, a lot of play in the next couple of months. I think it's going to be a hit. Drop It gets a thumbs up from my family.
Oh, yeah. I am so glad that you all had fun with it. And, I think the retail price for Drop It is $30.
It is very low. Yeah, it's good.
Right? I mean, for that kind of table presence and for all of those chunky pieces, it seems super reasonable to me. I was excited to see. I thought I easily could see it have been more expensive. So that is very cool. Yeah. I'm so glad you had a good time. And
Sweet.
I know now if I ever play a game with your eldest, I got to keep an eye on him.
You got it. He's tricky. Oh, yeah.
I wonder where he gets that from, huh?
I don't, from his mother, probably.
Poor Stephanie. Well, up next, I wanted to talk about a game called Monster Trap. And, it's a game I have in my collection. It's published by Cosmos. And coming to record this with you, I was like, I would need to look up who designed this. And I admit, I was completely floored when I looked it up on BGG. And Inka and Marcus Brand designed this game.
They show up everywhere.
Those brands, they're prolific. And Eric, Inka and Marcus are just 2 of my favorite designers. This Queensdale thing, that the Legacy game, I'm super excited. This is for that Legacy game, and I don't get to play Legacy games, and I'm going to figure out a way to make that happen. So it made a lot of sense, I guess, when I looked at Monster Trap. Oh my gosh, here are 2 of my favorite designers on this really neat little game. It has really fun little monster art by Michael Menzel, and it's got to what you were saying about Drop It. Monster Trap has some table presence because it is got a lot of plastic going on. So you get the box, you open the box, and it's got this plastic unit that kind of fills the box, and you actually leave it in the bottom part of the box. And you do have to do a little bit of assembly. There are all these plastic rails and caps and things that you kind of have to put together to get this thing going. But once you have it set up, you basically have a maze. You can look from the top down, and it looks like a little maze. And you have these little monster tokens, and there's little monster spots all around this different maze, and you just put them in randomly. And then you have these rails. Basically, when you're putting it together, you're assembling almost like this sliding rail system. And there's 2, I guess, the lateral and vertical or horizontal and vertical
Sure.
sticks or sliders that go across the board. And the goal of the game is you have this little monster token, and you're going to flip over a card that reveals where it starts, because all those monster tokens are all over the maze, and it's random where they are, and then it's random based on this card flip of which one you have to go to first. And then you work this slider system to maneuver this little piece, sliding it through the maze to get it to drop into the monster trap that's a little hole in the center of this maze. The extra twist on it is that it's intended to be a team effort. So one person manages the handles and the rails that go left to right, and the other person manages the handles that goes up and down. And I know I'm not making a lot of sense with this left, right, up, down thing. Clearly I don't have the language for it, so my apologies on that.
Sure.
So you're working together. So somebody is sliding this piece right and left, and the other person's sliding it. So it's a little like Magic Maze, where you can only move a piece to the left and somebody else is moving to the right. You have to work as a team to maneuver this thing. So you and your partner are trying to get the monster into the monster trap. And then as soon as that happens, you flip another card, you place the monster onto that monster token spot, and you do it again because you have a timer and you want to get as many monsters into the trap before the timer runs out. And that's really the bulk of how it is. There's a way that you randomize the partnership so that you're not always teamed up with the same person. And it is so much fun. And I also didn't realize that this game was designed years and years. I mean, it was, I think in BGG they said it was 2011. I had no idea it was that old. We just have a ton of fun. Both of my kids just love it. When my 6-year-old plays, I tend to team up with him and kind of help him out a little bit sometimes by holding one end of the handles while he holds the other end of the handles to help kind of guide him and things like that. But he just loves the game too. And it's for some reason, there's not as much frustration in this one when he wins or he loses. He just has a lot of fun working that system. It's colorful. It has all that plastic stuff going on. It's got the great art, and it's got this clever, unique rail moving system that is just totally a blast to play with. And that is Monster Trap. Have you ever played it, Eric?
This one I have not. Tom raved about this when it was new on the market, and I remember taking a look at pictures of it, and it was on my wish list for a while, but I never managed to track it down or get a chance to play it. So it's neat to hear that it made your list and that your kids enjoy it. I might have to go looking for an old copy somewhere.
Definitely. And it's still available. It's still in print. So if you want
cool.
it, it's not out of print. So there you go.
Are there any communication restrictions as you're working together to move the monster?
No, great point. It's very open. So it's your turn. You can move them to the left, move them to the right. All of that stuff is fair game.
Okay. I guess you could always play advanced mode with older kids.
For sure. I think that's a great idea. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should try that with my daughter.
Nice. All right, my last one I know you have played, and that's Stop Thief, which is a game that's been out for a little while now. This is Restoration Games' reprint of Stop Thief. It's designed by Rob Daviau. Robert Doyle did the original design. Justin D. Jacobson also helped develop it. Artist by Roland McDonald, and it's published by Restoration Games. So the competitive version's been out for a while, and one that my 10-year-old is a big fan of. But recently, the app got an update, and it contains the rules for the cooperative version of the game, in which you have to track down 7 nefarious criminals working together as the criminals move around the board. And so it starts out like a regular game of Stop Thief. There's also a sort of a kitty. $50,000 goes into a bank in the center of the board or outside the board. And if the bad guys steal all $50,000 or if you run out of money, you've lost. And every time they hit one of the crime spaces on the board, you lose $5,000 from this stack. Every time you make a false arrest, you lose $1,000 from the stack. Every time you ask for a private tip, which is when the app sort of tells you where the crime group is, except in this version, they only tell you like the first digit of the numbered space that they're in. That costs $1,000 as well. So now you've got this dwindling pile of resources that you have to judiciously use But you have to do this. You have to make arrests. You have to try and suss out where these folks are, because otherwise you'll never catch them. You have to narrow it down. So you've got all of your players working together, and you're discussing a lot more and trying to remember where they were. The regular app in the competitive version lets you review clues. Mm-hmm. The co-op version, I don't believe, lets you do that.
Nope.
You need to remember all the string of clues that you've heard so far. Otherwise, I think it would be a little too easy to track them down. So you're discussing a lot of, well, if he moved here, he could be in these 3 spaces. So how do we narrow that down? Can you get there and narrow one? Try and make an arrest from here? Can you get close to them? How can we figure this out? And then after you have caught one of them, you remove 1 card from the stack of 7 that you started with, but then they move silently 2 spaces away. And you think 2 spaces, that's not that big a deal. We'll be able to catch them pretty easily. If you look at the board of Stop Thief, from just about any space, 2 spaces can get you to a lot of places. And we had times that we, realized that they ran across the street into another building in those 2 spaces. And one time we miscounted, or we misjudged how they could have jumped farther than we thought they could in those 2 spaces. And so we thought we were dealing with a certain sphere, but we were actually dealing with 1 space more than that. And so at one point we got a tip and found out where they were, and they were totally not where we thought they were. Managed to win with only 2,000 or 3,000 left in our bank.
Nice.
So we managed to retire and catch the big bad. It is a lot of fun. I liked Stop Thief to begin with, but this new co-op version is a blast. And it doesn't cost it. It's not an expansion.
Nope.
It's just an update to the app. It's for something you've already got. So if you have Stop Thief sitting on the shelf, update your app and give it another whirl, because the co-op one is pretty cool.
I'm so glad to hear you say that you enjoyed it. I do feel compelled to mention, again, as I always like to, whenever anything related to restoration comes up, is that I do provide some consulting services to them behind the scenes. So I know I wasn't talking about Stop Thief, but I just always feel compelled to be fully transparent about that. I don't ever want any questions to come up about that. I didn't pay you to talk about Stop Thief or anything like that.
And it was totally my call. I really enjoyed this game to begin with, and I had to talk about it. So since you couldn't.
There you go. And, I have heard a lot of feedback since that cooperative mode went out. A lot of people are saying they kind of enjoy it more than the competitive mode.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to work together. And to sort of suss out and share your reasoning. He can only be in these 3 spaces. Well, why is that? Why can't he be here? Oh, well, he moved here, and then he moved possibly here or here, which means he can't be here. So it's kind of neat to work together, especially with the kids.
Exactly.
Because they might make a logical error and you can sort of set them in the right direction, or they might catch something that you didn't. Why can't he go through this window, Dad? Oh, yeah, he could, which could mean he's here. Mm-hmm. My son certainly caught a couple of things that I didn't. So, yeah, it's a great family game to play.
That is awesome to hear. Well, what I wanted to wrap up with, I think definitely falls under a broader family umbrella, but maybe is better with slightly older children if if you define family that way. But I wanted to talk about Decrypto, which was published by Scorpion Mask and then through their partner Yellow. This is a new game that fits into, I guess, the party game category. You need at least 3 people to play, but you need 4 to play from my perspective. And if it plays 4 to 8, great, because you break up into 2 different teams. And Decrypto, I'm betting, is getting a lot of comparisons to code names. And I think that is fair in many respects. Decrypto has a great gimmick, for lack of a better word, in that it uses red film technology. I mean, Eric, you know what I'm talking about, right? This old
red lens technology.
Red film that we used to have in magazines and comic books when we were kids and stuff like that.
Or the classic game of Password used red lens technology as well.
Darn it, you are right. I had forgotten about that. Whoa. That is a Wayback Machine for me right there. Holy cow. Well, Decrypto uses that, and you get these both teams get their own little machine, decryption machine or clue machine, whatever it is. It's basically a cardboard standee that has these red films. And then you have a fairly sizable stack of these cards that have the special print blurbs, that looks like red and light blue ink just sprayed on it.
Yeah.
And you slide 4 of these cards into their individual slots on this board. And then when they're in the red film, you see, aha, there's words. So each slot has a single word in it. So you've got 4 words spread across you that only your team will be able to see. And then the opposite team will have the same setup, but with 4 different words. And what you're going to do is, as my friend in my game group, Josh, says, the game is really not there. The game is in these little number cards, because you're going to have a stack of cards that are cleverly designed so the backs of them will look like floppy disks or old school data disks. And they just simply on the other side have 3-digit codes, 421, 123, 321, what have you. And you're going to take a card, and then the clue giver on a team is going to see a code, 123. And then if the words in those respective spots are penguin, rocket, worm, the clue giver is going to try to write a clue for each of those. The point is that they want to get their own team to guess what the code is based on the words, matching the words to the clues. And they go, oh, well, bird, well, that goes with worm. So that must be number 3.
But it could go with penguin.
Oh, do penguins eat worms? I don't know.
Yeah, but they're
very
a bird.
Good point. And then, in which case, I see what you're saying. Yeah, see, I'm very bad at this game. Oh my gosh.
You'd lose.
Never play with me, Decrypto, but please do, because I love this game. So you're going to do that, but then the other team hears the clues too, and they are writing down what clues you're giving, because they are trying to break your code. Then the next round, you do it again with the same words. The words don't change during the game, but the codes do. Mm-hmm. So you start to amass a series of clues related to the slots or the words. From the opposing team, when you don't see the words, you're trying to deduce, okay, slot number 2, we've heard can, we've heard ice, we've heard bubbles. Okay, and then and so they're trying to deduce the next as they're hearing clues given. Oh, well, that clue is flip. Well, maybe that's a flip top. So, maybe that's soda. So maybe that's number 3 or 2 because that's where all the other ones are going. It's obviously a little difficult to verbalize, but really, Decrypto has you collecting a set of clues under these given items that will help you try to break the code. And that's that collective clue building as you're going. You're given sheets. You're taking notes intentionally. It's very, very entertaining. Now, when I first read the rule book, I wanted to throw my hands up in the air. I could not understand the point of this game from the rule book. And the first play was a little bit of a struggle. But then once you got the flow, it really started to click, and you really got to see the magic of this game. With the back and forth and the amassing of clues and trying to get clever where you have the same words, but you're giving clue after clue after clue for it. So how are you being clever in the clues you're giving so that it doesn't completely reveal what the thing is so that the other team can break your code, but it still, let your team know what's going on. And you sometimes start running out of words. Like, I can't think of anything else. What else would make sense for this word? It's very entertaining. It moves relatively quickly. There's a timer, which comes into play basically after both team clue givers, when one of them figures out what clues they're going to give, then that starts the timer so that it puts the other. And I think that's a really fair way to treat it, and it keeps the game moving. It is different from Codenames in a number of ways, but I think the advantage Decrypto has over Codenames, I mean, Eric, you've played a bunch of Codenames, right?
Sure.
I mean, just in last episode, you named Codenames, was it Disney or Pictures as the English?
Pictures as my number 1, yeah.
Yeah. But when you play Codenames, right, you get this tableau of cards out, and you have your code card, and the clue givers just kind of sit there for a while, right?
Yeah.
And their brains are turning. They're trying to figure out how they can best maximize their clues and which words are theirs and which ones aren't and all this other stuff, right? There are long, long moments of just silence in Codenames. Doesn't make it a bad game. I love Codenames, but Decrypto has less of that. It moves at a faster pace out of the gate. And it kind of keeps a more steady gameplay rhythm to me than Codenames does. And I think that is an advantage Decrypto has over Codenames. Again, very different games, not trying to compare them directly, but since Codenames is so popular and a great reference point, I wanted to kind of bring it up as a counterpoint.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's Decrypto from Yellow and Scorpion Mask. And I got to say, I'm very enchanted by this one.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up Decrypto because I mentioned we visited the Labyrinth, and after we had played Drop It and Dr. Beaker, my son the younger one was getting a little antsy, and so my wife and son went back to the hotel while the 10-year-old stayed with me to play Decrypto. And I really enjoyed this as well. It is really an exercise in lateral thinking and trying to think outside the box. How do you use the secret information that your team knows, which is the words that are in front of them, and then give a clue that connects to that secret information? This actually has a closer analog, I think, to crosstalk.
Which I have not gotten to play from Nauvoo games.
Yeah, the one where you've got a secret clue that your team sees, and you're trying to relate to that clue while giving clues to your opponents, who then get to guess first. So you can't make it too obvious because the other team gets to guess first. But then because you gave such a good meshing clue with your secret clue, hopefully your team is on the right track when the other team gives a clue and your team gets to guess first. I really enjoyed Decrypto. It is, however, a bit of a handicap to play with a single younger player on one team and not the other.
Sure.
The 10-year-old was less adept at going outside the box, and we made a couple of mistakes. We made him go first, and one of our words was toilet, and he wrote down flush, which already has you sort of in that zone. Flush, what are you going to think of? And then I made the mistake of saying, I think, valve for the next time that word came up. And I think at that point we were sunk. There was any time any aquatic word came up or, and any clue that involved plumbing,
they knew the number.
They knew what was going on. And so if you make that sort of mistake and give them too easy a connection early on, it can really hamper your possibilities later in the game. But I still really enjoyed this one. I should have grabbed it. I didn't think my son had as much fun with it. And so we left the store without buying it. And then later on, he's like, so when are we going to get Decrypto? It's like, well, we could have gotten it right then and there. It was on the shelf. We looked at it. I held it in my hands. And anyway, we'll have to track that one down later. I give it a thumbs up as well. You
got to give your son major props for not going in a very different direction with that toilet clue. So beyond anything else, kudos to him.
He held
a
good amount of restraint. Yeah, you're probably right.
Well, Decrypto's a very, very new game.
Brand new.
But let's talk about some not so new games.
Let's do that.
Let's discuss those previously discovered board game gems in Shelf Staple.
So this segment is all about stuff that we have on our shelves and that has been there for a while. But I kind of cheated with my selection because not only is this a game that's been on my shelf for a while, it's also got a brand new version. So it's a perfect time. I know.
Cheater!
It's a perfect time to talk about High Society. It's a game by Reiner Knizia. The version that was sitting on my shelf for many years, since I think 2003, is the Uber Play edition, which has this sort of, it's got a bunch of yuppies all running around waving money. Very cartoony art. The art is by Alvin Madden. But the new one that is very pretty is art by Medusa Dollmaker for the Osprey edition. And
best name ever.
Medusa Dollmaker. Yeah, I don't know if that's a real name or if that's just like a stage name. What is a pen name, I guess, if you're an artist? Ooh. Anyway, in High Society, you are trying to get the most toys. It's an auction game, And most of the items up for auction are going to be numbered cards, numbered items that will be worth victory points when you acquire them. You have a hand of money. Everybody starts with the same assortment of money cards, but all the cards are in different denominations. So you have a few that are very small, 1s, 2s, 3s. But then you also have like a 25 card and a 15 card, some pretty high value cards. As you go around the table, and this is not just a once around auction, this is a continue until all but one have passed auction. You have to either pass and take your cards back, or add to the cards you have put out already. So if you start out lowballing it with your 3 card or your 2 card or your 1 card, you don't get to just take that back in order to bid 10. You have to put the 10 out there, and now you're bidding 13.
Yep.
So you don't want to necessarily lowball it. You want to make a decisive bid and be very judicious with spending those low cards, because those can be very useful when you want to outbid someone and the only cards you have in your hand are a 10 and the 15. That's not very helpful. So you want to have the low cards in your hand. So there's the basic element of the game, and you if you win, you then acquire that item in front of you. You flip over another one. But there are other cards in the deck, other items that are a little more tricky. There is a doubler, which is pretty cool. That doubles one of your items. There's also some negatives, like a -5. You don't want those. And when those come up, the auction works a little differently, because you're now bidding to avoid taking that thing. And you continue bidding until someone passes and they take the item. Everybody has to pay the money that they bid in order to avoid this stuff. At the end of the game, the game is going to end when 4 of these red items come up. Actually, there's 4 of them in there, and I think it's when 3. Is that how it goes? 3 come up?
Right, yeah.
When 3 of them come up out of the 4, the game will end. So that may happen very early in the stack. It may happen very late in the game. You may see almost everything in the game. If you have spent the most money, if you have the least money in the game, you're out.
You lose.
You have lost. There is no way to win. So even if you have the most toys, you don't get to win. And so you're hoping to have the most stuff, but not the least amount of money. Or amongst the players who have not spent the most money, be the one with the most stuff. Because usually the person with the least money has the best cards. And that's the game. It is very simple, but it's devilishly simple. And there's a reason why so many different editions have happened with this game. The new Osprey edition is a very small footprint indeed. It's basically the size of a paperback book. Very thin box. It's all cards. My Uber Play version, the items up for bid were all tiles. So they had a little more chunk to them. It's a larger box, maybe about 20%, maybe 20, maybe almost 50% bigger than the new version. But the Osprey version is all cards, which certainly makes it a lot more portable. It's a lot lighter. And easier to cart around. And I brought it with us on our trip to DC so that I could pull it out on the train and play around. The kids weren't interested in giving it a whirl, but I could bring it with me. But High Society is one that continues to come out as a quick. It is filler weight, certainly for time. It plays in, just like 15, 20 minutes. Yeah, about 20 minutes or so. So it certainly is one that deserves a place on the shelf and comes out on a regular basis. And at some point, I'll get the kids to play this new version. High Society.
Great choice. In just last episode, Mandy and Tom had a question in their Q&A about defining a classic game. And I think High Society is such a great example of what a classic game feels and looks like. Right. It withstands the test of time. And I love this game so much. It's got so much tension in it.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of the eyeballing that you give each other across a table when those negative cards come up, and the pain of giving up the money just so you don't take them, and the unpredictability of when that card, that third bad card or third green, I think it's green in the Osprey edition card, flips up. Ooh, it's a good one. And yeah, the Osprey edition, it's gorgeous. I cannot rave about this I guess, is it kind of not Art Deco style, kind of the Mucha, right, style art. It's just stunning.
They call it Art Nouveau inspired
Art Nouveau.
on
there
the back
you go.
of the box.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric, for keeping me.
Oh, you're sure. I mean, I got the box right in front of me, so
Cheater.
research by
you
gum.
are such a cheater.
It's like a glossy, it's real distinctive style. Unlike just about anything else I've been playing lately. Really neat.
Well, I also picked a Reiner Knizia game for my shelf staple.
What?
Dun, dun, dun. Not even planned. But I guess when you start talking about games that withstand the test of time, that are still on your shelf a few years later, Knizia is going to be on some lists. That's just how it works out.
Mm-hmm.
The one I want to talk about is much larger than the Osprey edition of High Society. And this is Indigo. Indigo is published by Ravensburger. It has art by Eckhard Freitag and Walter Peperl. And it actually has, I'm going to start right off with a negative. It has an odd shaped box to me. It's slightly longer than it is tall, so it's rectangular, and it's slightly bigger than a lot of boxes that are published today, and it just doesn't fit on my shelf quite right. And it's the one thing that drives me nuts.
That's interesting because it's the size of Power Grid.
Oh, I've never held it up to one of those big Friedman games, but that makes a lot of sense. Interesting.
Yeah. It fits exactly on my shelf with all of those. It's on that exact same shelf. Anyway.
With Power Grid and Fresh Fish and all those. Okay, good to know. I'll check that out. Indigo is an abstract game. It is basically a pure abstract game. And people who are going to take a look at it, if you've ever played Suro from Calliope Games, you're going to see some surface familiar elements. Because in Indigo, what you have are hex tiles that have crisscrossing path portions printed on them. And you have this board with little tokens around it that represent the different players that are in the game. And there are little marbles at different spots across this board stationed before you even start to play. Like you set it up with marbles on the board. Mm-hmm. And ultimately what you're doing is flipping a tile and playing a tile and aligning these paths. And when you place a tile down, you will move any marble that it adjoins to along the path. The whole point of moving these marbles is that you want to get these marbles to exit out these gates near these tokens that are around the board that represent you. So I might have a gate that's in blue. I'll have a double blue gate. But then, Eric, I might have a gate that's shared with you because every player will have their own gate and a shared gate. And my whole goal is to get these marbles so that they travel around the paths and they exit out my gate. Because ultimately, at the end of the game, when all the marbles have been slid out gates, they're worth points. I think there's 3 different colors and they're worth 3, 2, and 1 points, respectively, depending on their color. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole game. Take a tile. Place a tile, slide a marble, try to manipulate it to your gate. It's dead simple. It also just works really, really well. This is an excellent abstract game. I love that tile lane. I love that path plane. I love that you have to be flexible with the tile that you get. So maybe you're hoping to finally get that one marble out your gate, but the path just doesn't work. So you have to place it somewhere else and try to delay your opponents who are working towards something. It's just really clever and fun. And I really like that shared gate element because it introduces, of all things, kind of a negotiation element to the game. It's real small, but you do have these moments where there's a point token that's sitting out there and you can't get it, but maybe the person that you share that gate with could help you. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of elbowing them. Hey, let's just get this off the board. Let's share. If you can share those points and get it out our shared gate, which is a kind of fun element that Indigo has that I also really enjoy. So Indigo, dead simple abstract game. Lots of path planning, tile lane, and just really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of spoiled the fact that Indigo is still on my shelf as well. I really like this one. I compared it favorably to Metro, another path-building, tile-laying game. I think
Is that the
that's Queen Games, Rudiger Dorn, I think.
Okay.
And that one's train building, and you're trying to either extend your routes or dead end your opponent's routes. So I think Indigo is a little less nasty because of that partnership element. It's a little clearer, a little more straightforward, not quite as many paths to deal with. Indigo, however, plays only 4 players, whereas Metro plays 6, which is why I still...
And Suro plays up to 8.
I still have both in my collection. But I really like Indigo, and you reminding me about it. Actually, when we were looking for shelf-stable games, I did look briefly at Indigo, saying, I wonder if I should choose that one. That would have been funny if we had both chosen Indigo. I need to bring this out with the kids. This is on my short list of ones to introduce to them. Another great choice.
What can we say, Eric? We have excellent taste in games.
I think we've earned a good number of victory points, haven't we?
I think so, indeed.
We ask, you respond, we discuss. Let's talk hot topics in Victory Points.
Let's talk about hype.
I'm so excited about talking about hype.
It's going to be the most amazing thing ever.
This is going to be the best segment. Oh, my goodness.
We actually posted about hype a few weeks ago, and then Mandy and I got all wrapped up in our roll and write chat a couple of episodes ago, and we ran out of time.
I
so
heard that.
I'm really excited, actually, that means you get to do this with me, Eric.
Yes, I'm excited.
And what we do for Victory Points is we post a poll traditionally in Board Game Group in the Board Game Geek Guild for Dice Tower. But this is the first one that we also cross-posted to the Facebook group for Dice Tower because, Facebook lets you do little group polls as well. So we thought it would be fun to post both places. And we have results from both and grab some comments from both. It was really interesting to hear because I know, Eric, you and I and Tom and Mandy and all the people who produce board game content or reviews, in a sense, we're part of the board game hype machine. We are cogs in the hype machine,
but we're subject to it as well. I think amongst us, we hear about things and get excited about things as well. We're all gamers as well as mouthpieces, and so we're subject to this as well. Oh, that's putting it gently. I constantly. Even when I'm listening to your episodes with Tom and I hear you two talking about something that I haven't gotten to try yet, I get all jazzed up about it and all excited and am jealous and envious and wondering when and how I can get a hold of it. Yeah, ditto for your episodes as well. So the way you structured this poll, we sort of arranged them into various categories of how susceptible you are to hype. So one category was all aboard. When you hear hype, you immediately jump on the hype train. It makes me want the game and spread the word far and wide. On Facebook, nobody voted for that. Next up is the business class. Hype makes me super interested in the game, but I might only talk about it amongst friends. 36 people voted for that class in the poll. The most popular answer is riding coach. I'm glad hype makes me aware of the game. If it's a good deal and an interesting game, I'll check it out. 132 votes for riding coach. I'll meet you at the bus station had 20 votes. Hype doesn't really impact my interest in the game. And last but not least, I'd rather walk. Hype totally turns me off from a game. 4 people said that on Facebook. But some people weren't even confined to those answers. We had a couple of write-in answers. 2 different people said they are bitter. Hype stole my girlfriend and my dog. What amazes me is that not only did one person say that, but somebody jumped in and said the same thing. How could you not? 2 people also had red flag. Hype makes me more cautious to thoroughly check out a game if it initially appeals to me. One person said their luggage was stolen. Oh, great. Another game I have to locate, play, and understand to remain current in the industry. That I agree with. Often when I hear something that wasn't on my radar that then everybody is talking about, I really feel like I'm missing out. And it's like, well, now I have to find out more about this. Partially, I mean, it's sort of a unique situation for us. This might show up on awards list. This might be a contender for the Dice Tower Awards at the end of the year. And if I haven't played it, I can't really assess how it ranks amongst the other nominees. So if it is something that's getting a lot of talk, it really is something I need to check out. And the last write-in category, asleep at the wheel. Hype? I'm too busy playing Gloomhaven.
Dun,
Which,
dun, dun.
when you're talking about hype, is sort of applicable, right?
For sure. And it was interesting because overall the BGG results kind of mirrored that pattern.
Yeah.
We did have a couple of people on Board Game Group was like, I'm in, all aboard. I am on the hype train. Love it. Talk about it. Part of it. A fewer people said business class. It seemed like the one area that was flipped between Facebook and BGG was that fewer people said that they were kind of more people said that they were in business class, or actually maybe I'm just getting these all confused. But by far, again, writing coach, where hype just seems to grab people's attention, but then they use that to figure out what they want to research more. And I'll meet you at the bus station. A fair amount of people said that where, they'll be cautiously optimistic. And again, there were definitely people who felt like hype turned them off of a game. And I hear that fairly frequently. I almost wonder if the votes, I don't know, it seems like what I hear chatter online or even amongst people I know in person in the area that are gamers, it seems like there is a little bit of a thread of anti-hype and kind of this distrust of it, which I can understand I think, as a kind of turnoff.
I think if you've been burned by hype in the past, that can be a turnoff. It's sort of this, oh no, here we go again aspect. Oh, everyone's talking about this. I know what happened the last time I listened to everyone talking about this. And that, yeah, I can understand that response. And I know I just said that I will pay attention to something because of the hype, but I will sometimes avoid the thing that is being hyped. One of the things I try and do on these various programs is talk about stuff that everyone isn't already talking about, and try and pick the things that aren't going to the top of everyone's review pile. So sometimes hype I'm aware of it, and I know I need to play it at some point, but it's sometimes not something I'm going to focus on myself because everyone else is.
And I think it can be tiring. There are so many games that release every year now, and people, rightly so, designers and publishers are trying to get attention and try to get eyes on, and it just seems like the cycles are shorter and more intense, and just when you just paid for that latest, hottest, number one hotness BGG game, a week later, there's another one up there that's vying for your attention. So I think I can understand all of that for sure.
Well, certainly one of our common threads in the past few months is how to deal with so many games that are coming out every year, every month, and hype or marketing is one of the ways that games sort of stand out and get attention in this crowded marketplace. It is a necessary evil in many ways. And so riding the hype and seeing through the difference between hype and genuine enthusiasm is the tricky thing that you have to do right now in the industry.
I think that's a really great point that you brought up about genuine enthusiasm, because I do feel like that will often get mistaken for hype in a more negative connotation. But for me, when I see a game that I've gotten to play and just love, one, I want to talk about it. I want to share my appreciation for this wonderful game with other people so that they get to see and play it too. And maybe that's hyping it up, but it really is just wanting to share the joy of this game. And when I see games that I know are wonderful gems or big monstrous monster games that are totally immersive and awesome, and I see the internet at large talking them up, I actually am excited and happy. I'm happy that cool games are getting attention and will do well, because in this competitive market, I want the cream to rise to the top, and talking about it is one way that gets to happen. So, but whether hype and enthusiasm, how those overlap, I think it's a very delicate line to draw. So I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah. So many of you out there in the listening public have shared your thoughts with us on the various polls, and Eric B is one of those. Carnage994 said the big challenge with hype is that it sets expectations very high. Not every game is for everyone, so an overhyped game may end up attracting buyers who may not necessarily be the target audience. The other challenge with overhyped games is that if the game doesn't deliver on what the hype promised, people on the hype train will tend to still praise the game because they invested way too much in it.
I think you see that with Kickstarter sometimes, right?
Sure.
There's a little bit of that effect, especially in like BGG ratings sometimes. Yeah. But and I think Eric's also alluding to a little bit of that burn that you talked about earlier, Eric. Like if you get burned by hype, you don't forget it.
Yeah. I certainly take the comment about the expansion of the normal audience. A game like Gloomhaven on its own may have only appealed to fans of dungeon crawls. But it got so much talk that people who are not necessarily fans of dungeon crawls, raising hand now, will start to pay attention to it. And perhaps that's a good thing and will reveal aspects of a game that were not originally, in the radar of somebody else. But it also could lead someone to buy a game that they would not normally appreciate. For better or worse.
For sure, because you don't want that mismatch to happen, because it just creates a bad experience, which nobody wants. Jeff R., a familiar face around here, Mem Birdman, says, I do suffer from FOMO sometimes, fear of missing out, but I have pulled back quite a bit from hype in the last year. I still get caught up in it once in a while, high seventh continent, but I'm not as influenced by it as I was. And I think that is definitely reflective of people who get into the hobby longer and longer and get exposed to more and more games. The hype and the energy and excitement is still there, but I do think you can reach a threshold that you've kind of seen a lot of stuff, and you at least understand yourself and your own group better to understand what really deserves your attention and what doesn't.
Yeah. I like Mrs. Smith's approach to hype, to processing hype. Mrs. Smith goes by the name Tegs online. Hype helps me to make a mental list of games I want to try out at the annual convention in my city, which is CanCon. I like to try to play lots of new-to-me games when I'm at the convention, so anything that's seen a lot of hype in the preceding 12 months is likely to be at the top of my hit list. I like that Mrs. Smith is not necessarily making a purchase decision due to the hype, but is simply paying attention due to the hype for closer scrutiny. And I think that's a good way to process some of this stuff.
I really love that approach. And I think that in a way, Benjamin M., who is a Wavewinder, is saying something in the same realm where they're saying, seeing and hearing what others are saying about a game, I can generally tell if it's a game I'll be interested, and then I go research it more. But hearing positive conversation and critical analysis about a game is what generally gets them interested in games. And dinosaurs, they say, which, duh, dinosaurs.
Tim B. also highlights the negative. I used to be more into the hype until I got burned too many times. It seems now that games go from being the hotness to being on the clearance shelf in a matter of a couple of months. I will let others deal with the hype now. I will see where the hype falls. I am to the point, if I miss something, I miss it.
Yeah, that is definitely that getting burned. And I have been burned.
Yes.
Peter S. says, hype may get my attention, but there has to be something of interest. Otherwise, to go further, I'm not likely to back a minis heavy game, nor will I back a zombie theme game. I hear you on that, Peter. Mm-hmm. And if the price is too high, that tends to lessen excitement as well. Well, of course, when the dollars start to come into play, it can get really, really dangerous. But I think that really speaks to if you find yourself caught up in all the excitement that's going on, all the chatter that's going around a game, grounding yourself in what you know about yourself as a gamer and what you really enjoy and what you don't enjoy. Peter mentioned zombie games. I am also not a zombie theme fan. And just being able to say, no matter how excited others are for a game, if you know it doesn't touch a core of something that you typically enjoy, maybe take a breath, and pass.
Yeah. The Mr. Sean finishes up the list of comments with, marketing and podcasts will surely make me aware of new games. Advertising works! ! And I love keeping up with and educating myself on what is hot. It's one of the reasons I've enjoyed listening to the Dice Tower for so long. Aww. But that's about as far as it goes. I buy and back things all the time, but only after I've seen enough to know it's a game I would likely enjoy or something I've been following the development of.
And Eric, I think it would be interesting to go back and think about how marketing and advertisement for games has changed over the years, especially as the internet has grown.
Oh, sure.
Right. We've talked a little bit about just awareness that games exist from Germany or from Japan in the past and how the internet has enabled some of that. But the internet's also totally changed the awareness, advertising, and hype machine around games, for better and for worse, I would imagine. But it would be very, very interesting to see how things like being able to watch a game being developed online because the designers are online sharing about it and things like that, how that plays into the hype machine, because that's different today than it was even 5 years ago.
Certainly. I mean, it used to be that you found out about new games by buying a game and then looking at the little catalog inside the Rio Grande release and saying, oh, I've never seen that before. That's neat. And now it's a lot
they
more.
Are changing.
It's a lot more front loaded, and a few people mentioned how quick this cycle goes. So the hype and marketing machine tends to be more intense these days than it was 5 years ago, because these games need to make a mark in a couple months, or that's their shot, and then they tend to disappear a lot more quickly if they haven't really made a splash.
Well, thank you, everybody, for chiming in with your thoughts on hype and games. Eric and I have talked about a lot of elements. You heard comments from your friends out there in the internet world as well. But I'd love to hear a little bit more. Usually on Board Game Geek, we get a little thread going for each episode. Tell us what you think about hype, or whether this discussion's kind of introduced any other thoughts into your heads about hype. And I'd really love to hear a little bit more from you. We talk about hype and advertising and podcasts like we're on now. But what part of the hype machine do you like? Where do you like getting that information? And what have you found for a game, whether Gloomhaven, Some of the Continent, Zombicide, whatever it is, that has done something in that hype machine that worked and that you actually really enjoyed? I'd love to hear instances of that. So if you think about that, drop a comment into the threads on Board Game Geek in the Dice Tower Guild and let us know your thoughts there.
Cool.
Next episode that Mandy and I have, we'll be answering more of your questions from our fancy new Dicetower.com emails. Eric, this is pretty cool.
It's pretty neat. Yes, it's nice to have Eric at Dicetower.com, Suzanne at Dicetower.com, and Mandy, with an I, at Dicetower.com.
Most definitely. So now you can send your questions to all of us, to individuals, and let us know what we can answer for you in our next Q&A. Send them to Eric as well, because Eric and Tom could answer them on their Q&A sections. All right, everybody, we are going to... Oh, Eric, I'm so sad.
Wow.
It's time for us to wrap up.
This went by so quickly.
We're going to have to talk to Tom and Mandy, because I think we're going to have to do this again.
We might need to rotate some more, just on occasion. I'll hang out with Tom for a little bit, but, I'd like to talk to you some more, too.
this is super fun. And I enjoyed listening to the last episode with Tom and Mandy so much. So it's definitely fun to mix it up. We'll get something going. And
at the very least, we'll be able to hang out at Origins, right?
That's exactly where my brain went. I'm so excited. We'll have everybody on that show, and it'll be mega awesome.
Well, so next week I will be back with Tom for episode 554, and we'll be talking about our top 10 games for teaching history, continuing our education series in the top 10 lists. I have not yet made that list, and I better get to work.
I can't wait to hear it because, boy, games and history, they're lock and step.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is an organization dedicated to helping gamers in need. Learn more about the fund's mission and how you can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Suzanne, Mandy, and Eric, with assistance from Itai Perez, Derek Porter, Rob Searing, and Jeff Rademacher. The sad tale of what happens when Suzanne goes out the door, provided by Suze She Go. Our theme is composed by Timothy Pinkham and arranged by Matt Bellier, and hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at dicetower@gmail.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower Network at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming.
Eric, that pun. Good.
I've been saving it.
Oh,
I've had that one waiting for a while.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I hope you enjoyed it.
Normally, this is when we do Two Truths and a Lie, but obviously with Mandy here, I'm not going to reveal her secrets.
Well, no, and I probably shouldn't either.
No, so I think all of y'all out there are going to have to wait until our next episode to hear Mandy's reveal about all of her Batman loves. But,
yes, but we can talk about you and Spider-Man.
Oh, we should definitely do that. All right. So my reveal from last episode, I like Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. I like Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. And I like Tom Holland as Spider-Man.
I know what I want the answer to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I can't say whether I like Andrew Garfield or not because I never watched any of his movies as Spider-Man. So that was my lie.
Oh, well, that's better.
Okay.
Because he's pretty good as Spider-Man. I was going to be kind of angry at you for not liking Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man.
Oh, really?
I'm just saying. You should check it out. It should be on your list of things to do.
He looks kind of doofy to me.
Looks can be deceiving. He's very charming.
Alrighty. On your recommendation alone, Eric, I'm going to check it out.
You should check it out.
Did you prep for us?
Yes, I wanted to play this game. I haven't had a chance. I've been listening to the two of you give all of these lies and all these truths, and I want to jump in. So I've prepared 3. 2 of these are true, and 1 is not. 1, I have held the crystal balls used in the film Labyrinth. 2, I performed briefly as Bert in a stage show. Or 3, I have touched the dark crystal.
Eric, I don't want any of those to be lies.
Maybe they're all true, and that's the big reveal.
And you're cheating the game.
No, one of them's a lie.
I could live with that. Well, mine are quite more sedate, because who could compete with those amazing statements? I will just say, I've been to France, I've been to Norway, and I've been to South Korea.
Interesting.
One of those is a lie. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. New from USAopoly is Thanos Rising, Avengers Infinity War, a cooperative dice and card game. In the game, players will recruit heroes and assemble a team to face off against Thanos and his villainous forces in an effort to thwart him from accomplishing his master plan, collecting all 6 Infinity Stones to power the Infinity Gauntlet and wreak havoc on the very fabric of reality. Play with all your favorite characters to take down Thanos once and for all. Available now at your favorite local game store. It's for 2 to 4 players and for ages 8+. Also, Tom has yet to win.